tweeting out, there are prizes to be won if you don't build a bot to do it for you. And also remember, on the back of your cards, you've got the treasure hunt, the bingo card, whatever you want to call it, where you can win some awesome Bose headphones. Without further ado, though, let's introduce our next speaker here on the stage. We have Batsou.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. And going to be talking to us about, easy to create a good-looking product. But what about a useful one? This one's really close to my heart, and I can't wait. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you everyone for coming to my session. I hope lunch was good, but also you're not very heavy, so you can still pay attention to what I'm be talking about. This talk is not about coding, so you know that. We are in our third day. So we will be speaking about UX and UI, but what I will try to do is to show you how we can combine these things with coding, because I guess that most of you here are developers. And you may also have designers and UXers to your company, but you may be also working alone, or you're maybe in a startup, or you have a cool idea and you want to start slowly working on that. So I hope that with this presentation, I'm going to help you and create a better product. All right, so without further ado, I am Eleftheria. I'm coming from Greece. You can find me on my social media, and if you are a bit shy and you don't want to ask me questions right now, feel free to catch me somewhere on these things and I will try to answer you. Okay, now we will talk about UX, UI. What is UX? What is UI? And what we will do differently here is we will try to cover these points from the perspective of the user and the perspective of the designer/developer. Because a lot of times we see those things online, but they only cover one perspective, and this is the perspective of the user. But here we are not only users, we are more than that. And we will talk a little bit about heuristics, what are they, and I will show you a lot of examples, and in the end we will have some tips and tricks about being a better designer and UXer. Okay, now we can start. First, I want you to see some images. I will not cover in detail these images, but I want you to see what is right and what is wrong. Just see it, observe it, and that's it. I'm not going to analyze it right now, but this is some of the things that we will see in a bit, okay? Another one example, maybe some of this stuff are a bit familiar to you. Maybe you are designing, maybe you are doing something for your company and you have seen these, or you are actually working in examples exactly like these ones. We have this stuff, and this stuff. Okay, some of them are maybe a bit familiar with you. Okay, and now time to start. UX versus UI. What is UX? What is UI? So when I say UX, I mean user experience, and when I say UI, I mean user interface. Let's start with a user's perspective about user interface. So what user interface is what we see in a product, and the whole experience is localized in a device. So are we using our phones? Are you using our desktop? This is UI from the perspective of the user. But we also have user experience, and from the perspective of the user, this time is what interacts on, what clicks on, and the whole experience is localized on our physical body. Are we smiling? Are we quite angry? If we see another person holding their phone and they are smiling, we can probably understand that they are having a nice experience. If they are like that, probably they don't have a nice experience. But now, from the perspective of the designer/developer, things can be a little bit more complicated. So I thought to start with an analogy. When we are very, very far away from an icicle, we can only see the tip of the icicle. But it's not only that, it's much more. It's the sea, it's the cold, and it's the huge mountain underneath that icicle that holds everything together. This describes very well UI and UX for us, the developers. From one hand, UI is what we see, But from the other hand, UX is what we see alongside with what we don't see and what holds everything together. This is UX for us as developers and designers. We cannot have UI without UX, and this is very crucial because companies usually will ask for UI designers. Okay, it's a nice thing to have a UI designer, but you cannot have only a UI designer. You need a UX person as well. And sometimes even worse, companies will ask only for a coder, a programmer, without having a designer, without having a UX person, a UX researcher or a UX designer. So keep that in mind. And I'm saying all these things because, as I mentioned when I was starting with this talk, maybe you have your own product, maybe you're working alone, maybe you're a freelancer, and you have to wear a lot of hats. Remember, instead of starting from coding, just go one step back, think of the research, like do the research, then go to the design, and then go to actually coding. Sometimes we forget the two previous steps and we are only code. Okay, and now I guess I can continue with an example. What would you prefer? A writing sharing app that doesn't allow you to save your favorite destinations, pay however you want, make multiple stops. It doesn't show in real time your location or your driver locations. Or would you prefer another writing sharing app with a similar UI, but this time it lets you save your favorite destinations, you can pay however you want, you can make stops to pick up your friends and all this kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure that the answer here is the second option, but when we are creating our own products, sometimes we know them too well because we are the ones who are creating them, and we think that we have an absolutely great product that everyone will love. And because we are developing this product, we can do everything with ease, with satisfaction, and everything is fast and smooth for us. But try to give your product to someone else that is not working with you. Maybe it's not on your team. Maybe it can be your partner, maybe it can be your mother-in-law. Probably this is a better option because, she will give you the feedback. So we want this kind of things. We want the feedback and we want to optimize our product for ease and satisfaction. These two words, ease and satisfactions, are key when we are talking about UX. So what does a UX designer really do? And before we answer that question, I will first do a small parenthesis, and we will be talking about this guy. This is Don Norman. He started as an engineer, and then he transitioned to psychology, and then he started working at Apple, and we have Apple and UI at Apple as we know it today. What he did differently than everyone else is that he observed how people interact with products. Before him, obviously, people and programmers were creating products, but the UI was not as good, was not as useful. People can still do things, but they have to be specialized in these things in order to complete something. This is the person who changed that, and again, this is why we have Apple as we know it today. By the way, this person also have a lot of books. If anyone is interested, you can find them nowadays for free online. This is a great book, and it's not only about online design and web products, it's also about physical products. It's very simple, it's very straightforward, so I would suggest you, if you're interested, to have a look at it. You can read it very easily. All right, and now let's try to answer my first question, which was, what does a UX designer really do? Well, they are doing a lot of stuff. I have here this pyramid, and I will start from bottom to top. We have UX research and analysis, content strategy, information architecture, interaction design, and visual design. I will not go into a lot of details here, so I will just try to give you some basic things like in user research and analysis. We have things such as creating user personas, user stories, empathy maps, customer journeys, and when we will have all the information information for these things, we will move along to the next step, which is content strategy. Here we will have to write some copies, micro copies, emails. Some people may find this stuff boring, but the best we have the details for a product, the better product we will be able to have in the end. Then we also have information architecture. Here is the lifeblood of our product. And again, we should have on this stage all the information that we need. Keep in mind that we are still in the research phase. We're not designing yet, and by no means we are not coding yet. We should create and we should have all those details and all those information in order to continue. And in the next two stages, interaction design and visual design, here is where the UI designer comes in. So we will see those stuff in a bit. So by now we covered UX. I hope we are okay with that, and we can continue with UI, user interface. So in user interface, a lot of people will think that it's about colors, buttons, maybe typography, pretty much, and that's it. Am I right? No, it's not only about that, and I would really like to stress that out, that UI is not only about buttons and colors and maybe some images. No, trust me, it's a lot more than that. And I have some examples to try to persuade you on that. So UI can be audible, right? We're shouting in some small roundy machines, and they will give us answers about pretty much everything. This is UI. It's a different kind of UI, but it's still UI. It's an audible UI. And then we also have this kind of things that I'm guessing you are already familiar. This is a textual form of UI. Here we don't have fancy typography, we don't have fancy images, we don't have a lot of colors. It's something simple and straightforward. But this is also a form of UI. Okay, I think that now we covered that as well. And let's go to our first question. What does a UI designer really do? And this time we will go back to our pyramid. And having all the information from the last three stages, we can focus this time on the interaction design. And yes, here we will have things such as buttons, colors, typography, but it's not only that. A UI designer has to be good at typography, color theory, iconography, illustrations, visual designs, visual aspects, and a lot more. And then when we have also all this stuff done, we can move on to the last stage, which is the visual design. And here we should have different variations, test everything, how they work, test our input, how our product will correspond to our answers, to wrong answers, and all these sort of things. Really here at that stage, we should finalize our product. Not the code, just the design and how it will work. Okay, and let's not forget that products keep evolving. We have phones, different kind of phones, we have different kind of desktops, so always just keep that in mind. And it's not only that, we have Motorola, we have Samsung, they keep changing stuff, and if you are a front-end developer, you know the struggle. Okay. So by now, I hope we have realized that UX is not UI and UI is not UX. UI is a part of UX, and we cannot have UI if we don't have UX. So step number 1 is UX, step number 2 is UI, and step number 3 is coding. Okay, let's move on to the heuristics. Here we will see some more examples and finally get a bit more practical. Heuristics. What are heuristics? Heuristics is making making decisions with information that we already have. We have a lot of heuristics, really a lot of them, but we will focus only on some of them, and to be more specific, we will focus on 10 rules. These 10 rules I will either call them rules or heuristics, so keep in mind that for this presentation, rules and heuristics are the same. These rules are not by me, but any case, but it's from Don Norman and Nielson that we saw earlier in this presentation, you know, that guy I saw you earlier. So it's like a manifest from 10 rules, and we will work and see some examples on this. And I hope that this will help you to create a better product. So we will focus on heuristic analysis, although, again, there are many rules and many sets of rules, but we will focus on that because these are the easiest and they will give us the best results. Okay, how to conduct an effective heuristic evaluation. First of all, define the scope of your evaluation. Why do you want to do that? Why are you testing and why do you want to test? Next, know your end user. You should always focus on your user. And if you don't have a user right now at this moment, trust me, there are many ways that you can find your users. You can go to your company, you can ask other departments to test your products. And I'm saying other departments because, again, in your department, probably most of you are already developers, maybe you're already working on that product, so you cannot be a user. We want real users, and I want to emphasize on that we want real users. Now, if you're working alone and you don't have a company to test your product, maybe you can go to your friends, family, maybe you can ask people online if they want to test your product. Or in any other cases, if you are, again, working in a company, but you want to do like a more professional work, you can actually try to find other sites and other online services that they can bring you real users. You can specifically say the demographics that you want or something else that you particularly want, and they will bring you real users. This can be done online and on-site as well, but it just needs some money. So there are always solutions. Okay, so who is this product for? We covered that. Choose your set of heuristics, and we will be talking about that in a bit. Set up an evaluation system and identify issues. Ask yourself, how will evaluators access and report the usability issues? And last but not least, analyze and summarize your findings. If you have done a great research, that's awesome, but in the end, you should also summarize your findings for you, your team, and to have a better process in the end. Okay, now let's see the 10 rules and the examples. Rule number 1, visibility of system status. Everyone wants to see stuff. For example, we open up our phone, and as soon as we see the light on the screen, we will see the time, we will see notifications, we will see maybe the temperature, we will see the screensaver or whatever. Now, imagine someone taking all this stuff off from your screen. How would you feel? Maybe a little bit naked? That's how your users are going to feel if they don't see the stuff that they are waiting to see. Show them the stuff that they want to see. Don't overdo it. They don't want to see a lot of things, just some basic things, and that's enough, because this will be maybe your first screen or another screen, but you don't really need to put all the information in that screen. If they want more stuff, you can have a more button, a settings button, or whatever. You can have a click button, again, whatever. Just show them the basic stuff. This is rule number 1. Rule number 2 is match between the system and the real world. People already assume how your product works based on the experience they have with other products. And 90% of their time they will use other products, and then 10% of the time they will use your product. And this is the best case scenario. Maybe they will devote even less time on your product. So don't try to change everything. If something works in most of the apps in a certain way, most of the products in a certain way, don't try to change it in your app, because people will make mistakes in that case. And we will talk about mistakes in a bit. So yeah, people presume how the system would work. Don't try to change that. And in this example, I have some designs as well in the first line. A bin, A trash bin is always a trash bin. Don't try to change it. A compass is always a compass. And these things are coming from the skeuomorphism design, which means that people didn't know how to use some stuff. So when we started working with our mobiles or on our desktops, we used these icons because they look like exactly how they look in the real world. So that's how we are using them. Now you can use this kind of stuff, or nowadays we know how to use them and you're free to change them, but don't overdo it because then people will not know how to use it. Rule number 3. User control and freedom. People will do mistakes, as we said. Maybe you have the perfect product, it's not up to you. People will be in a hurry, maybe they will misclick something, maybe they didn't read very well something, so they will do some mistakes. That's why we want an emergency exit. You can have an undo button, an exit button, something like that, but always provide something for them. It's not too difficult to have an X button, an undo button. Just keep that in mind when you are designing and when you are coding, or if you already have your product and it's out in the world, just try to add those stuff and you will see that your users will make less and less mistakes because you can track those things. I'm pretty sure that you can see what are they doing in your product. Then let's go to the 4th one, which is one of my favorites. I have 2 favorites. This is one of them. It's consistency and standards. Just because you're different, it doesn't mean you're awesome or perfect, or it doesn't mean that you are good, okay? It's good to be unique. It's good to have great, unique products and great ideas, but that doesn't mean that people actually will use your unique product or they want to discover your unique idea. Maybe this problem that you are trying to solve with your product, maybe it's something that you only have and not the other people. So validate your ideas and don't try to change things that they are already working in a specific way. And don't try to change visuals, don't try to change words. Again, a bin is always a bin. So if you have a bin, just use the same word always. If you have an erase action, use always the same wording, like erase or delete, but keep that thing always the same. And this goes for the colors. You will pick a color, maybe let's say you will pick blue. Okay, you're using blue, nice, nice, and then the next time you will use a different shade of blue. And then the next time that you will work in your project, a different shade of blue. We don't want that. Stick to a color, stick to some specific words, stick to some specific iconography, and don't change that. Especially if you have a big product and maybe a bit old one, you will notice these mistakes are quite common. Try to change them slowly by slowly, identify them, and try to change them. Okay. Let's go to the 5th one, which is error prevention, and this one is quite crucial. We have 2 kinds of errors. We have the sleeps and we have the mistakes. The first one, the sleeps, is pretty much what we already discussed, is that our users will do mistakes. Maybe they are in a hurry, maybe they misclick something, and as we also discussed, you can have an undo action, an exit button, something like that, so our users can go back to the previous situation. That's okay, and that's great. The other thing is the mistakes. Here is where we have the problem. When your users are doing mistakes, this means that the logic of the product is not so good. And that's why they are doing mistakes. They don't understand how will something work, and that's why they will click something or they will do something that they don't really want. In case that we see these mistakes quite often, we should do a step back. We should go back to our team and discuss those things again and try to change that. We don't want mistakes. Sleeps is something that we cannot avoid. Our users will do them, but mistakes is something that we should strive to avoid as much as possible. Okay, and the 6th rule is recognition rather than recall. Our memory has two types, and this is recognition and recall. We always want recognition. Recognition is when we will see something and we'll understand that. So we will easily understand that, and it will be easy on our mind. We will be easy in our memories. So when we see an icon, an image, when we see something that we don't really have to think of, this is recognition, and this is what we want. Recall is when we have a date that we can't really remember, or if we're trying to find out a name that, again, we can't really remember. This is recall, and we don't want that. Some good patterns for recognition is having images, having maybe some prompts that they will help your users fill out a form. It's always good if you have like a date, a field of date, like use the date field. If you have an email, use that one. So don't try to make your user guess what it should be on that field. We always want recognition. And here I have this example by Coursera because I think that they are good and great job at that, but there are also some great other examples out there. And let's go to the seventh one, which is flexibility and efficiency of use. This goes to your users. You will have the first-time users and you will have the power users. The power users are the people that they will know your product so well. They will want to do things fast and easy. They won't care about the small details. Maybe they want to connect your product with other products or with other services. But from the other hand, you will also have the first-time users. And these are the users that they want things to go slowly. They will want to see more details, maybe to read the documentation, maybe stuff like that, slowly and step by step. So what you should try to do is to provide something for everyone. For the first-time users, you should have some pop-ups, you should have some more details. But on the other hand, for your power users, you don't want these things. You want maybe connectivity, fast, easiness, and of course making sure that everything runs correctly, because they will not go back to recheck things. Just try to provide something for everyone. And if you're testing your product, you belong to the second category. You belong to the power users because you are creating, you know it really well. So don't build something only from your own experience. See how other people, and especially first-time users, are going to use your product or your service or whatever. Okay, and let's go to the eighth one, which is my other favorite. I told you that I have two favorites. So it's aesthetic and minimal design. Okay, this one is quite crucial, and especially if you're not a designer, but you are building something, this is really, really crucial. Sometimes, again, we have a lot of ideas, we have a lot of energy, we are ready to code, so we will try to build, and make some fancy stuff. But in the end, again, if we take a step back, which is something that we should do, we will see that, yeah, maybe it's not working as well as it should work. Maybe we have a lot of colors, we have a lot of different types and typefaces. So my suggestion here would be to stick to simple colors. Maybe 1-2 colors and that's enough. Use a big font size and don't try to squeeze up everything. Leave some space, some wide space, and always have a big font size. People can't really see and read these small letters. If you're using weird colors or colors that are not commonly used, again, this is difficult for your users. They maybe look nice, okay, but here is not only about having beautiful products, but it's about having useful products. And in order to having useful products, we want some good color contrast. We want big font size because our products is usually for everyone and not just for young people that stereotypically they will have better eyes. So keep those things in mind, simple rules. Let's try to stick on them, and then if you have like a special person, a special designer or something, they can do the work, they can add more colors or other stuff. But if you're working alone, I would totally suggest you to keep it minimal. Okay, we got that? Right. Okay, let's go to the 9th rule, which is help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. Okay, I think this is something very close to our hearts because all of us have seen stuff like that. We've seen error online, blah, 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 and no one can really understand that. And even if you are a developer, you still can't understand what that error is. We really don't want that. Try not only to show the error, but also give a solution, give something that your user can recover from it. So if your system, for example, if the user should upload an image to your system, try to specify what kind of images they can be uploaded, like it can be JPEG or PNG, but not something else. If there is a character limitation, have that as well. If there is a PDF, specify that it's only PDF and it's not doc or something else. Always try to give some solutions and not only portray the error. Okay. And the final rule is help and documentation. Yes, you should strive to have a really nice product, a perfect product, and as good as possible, but because you will have the first-time users, as we discussed, or you will have other types of users, maybe some stuff needs some documentation. The documentation should be, again, simple. Don't use weird language and stuff like that, especially if your product is for everyone and not only for people in your specific language, then really keep it simple. And there are some sources out there like Slack or Trello that I think that they're doing a great job. They have some minimal imports and that's it. Basic stuff, they do the job, and again, that's it. Okay, so we covered the 10 rules. You saw some examples. I hope that you took something from these examples. And now we can continue with the do's and don'ts of UX. So here we will see very quickly some tips. And again, you can keep them and try to work with them the next time that you have a product or a service. Okay. First one, don't assume you know what the user wants. That's why we have the real users. That's why you should find real users. And there are always solutions about finding users. Next one, don't follow the hippo at the room. And hippo stands for the highest paid person's opinion. Okay? Just because your boss or your manager is paying you, it doesn't mean that you should say yes and yes and yes. You have an opinion. I'm sure that you have an opinion. So be loud about that. You can have some research to present as well, but always show them that, you know, this is my opinion. You can back it up, and that's it. Next one, do make the time and effort for user research. Always do your research, and that's why, and that's how you will convince the other people that your thoughts are also the better ones. Do focus on what people do rather than what they say. This is, again, really crucial. Sometimes I will say that I am happy, but if you look at my face, you will understand that I'm not happy, and vice versa. Always observe people. That's why you want users, and that's why you want to see them. If you conduct a research and you can have the users with you, that's even better. Next tip, if you can only do one thing, do conduct user testing. Again, quite important. Don't overlook existing insight from customer care representatives. If you can see your support system or the comments that people are leaving about your product, really do those things. And I feel the support, or if you have like a Slack channel or whatever, that your users are able to go to that port as well. Really take some time to see what people are saying about your product. You will see things, you will find things that you weren't expecting. And I'm also saying that from a personal perspective. I'm working at Hashnot. Hashnot is a blogging platform, and we have a support system. Before doing that thing, before watching the support system, I didn't know many of the problems that our people are facing. And when I saw that, I really tried to take a step back, to speak with my managers, to find the solutions to all these problems. And I really think that you should do the same if you are working in a company and you feel that there are some hitches that could be improved. It's a great way to find recaps and then solutions. Do collaborate. You're not alone. do find someone qualified to do your research, or hopefully with these tips you became a little bit more qualified yourself. And then the last part is the good and the bad of UI. So again, here we will see some small things. We will see the good or the bad UI, the bad UI designer, and you can choose which one you are. Okay, let's try that. Let's keep the quote. Okay, so the designer's mindset. The good designer listens to everyone from decision makers, team members, and stakeholders, whereas the bad one judges and suggests solutions all the time. You can pick a side. The good one questions the status quo, digs deep to find out real problems and needs, whereas the bad one follows the rule, we've always done it that way, and try to fix symptoms only. And I'm pretty sure that for the bad one, we've always done it that way. This is something that you have heard in the company, especially if your company it's not a startup. Because on startups, yes, we will do things differently, but if it's an older company, not so much. Now, the good one takes time to ask about what is missing and is always uncertain about understandings and findings and designs, whereas the bad one follows his assumption and is always certain about his work. Again, feel free to pick a side. The good one loves to be wrong and seeks feedback, whereas the bad one loves to be always right and seeks praise. The good one leads, the bad one follows. Thank you very much. That was it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me.
Thank you very much. That was a phenomenal presentation. I recognize so much of that, some from the good and way too much from the bad, which I now have to take back and do something about. Do we have any questions in the room? We do.
Thank you.
Hello, can you tell us a little bit about how you do your own user testing in Hasnode where you are?
Yes, we have users, we have beta users, so we always try to speak with them and try to see what's wrong or not. Usually when we have something new, like a new feature, then we will talk more about them. But also, as I mentioned, because we now have the support system, which is something that we didn't have, like a few months back, we didn't have them. Right now, it's much easier because we can target specific things and also talk with a specific user that may have this problem. And pretty much that's how we do it.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions in the room? We do. Oh, good. I don't even have to move that far.
Hello. Thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting. So, how do you understand when you need user research for what feature, for what thing you understand that this thing needs to be researched and this I already know all answers?
Yeah, I think that everything should have a research, because sometimes we feel that we know something, but just because we know something, it doesn't mean that our users see it in the same way that we see it. So if it's even if it's something very simple, you should have done some research about that. Maybe it's simple for you, but it's not simple for other people. And maybe because we've always done it that way, it doesn't mean that this is the correct way. Maybe there are better solutions. So I think that you should always have your research.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions in the room?
Come on, people.
Oh, now I've got to do some exercise.
So what do you do if you don't work with any UX people and you're just a team of developers?
Yes, that's a good question. And that's something that it's actually quite common, because we don't have a lot of UX researchers, or companies don't provide, they don't care so much about UX researchers. So I would say that some of your team, or maybe even the whole team, should do the research on their own, and they should find how to create something, why to create something, and they should try to find a solution to that. It's not always easy because as a programmer you will want to code and maybe you don't care so much about the research, but I think that you should take one step back and do the research on your own.
Looking around the room for any more hands? Nobody hiding behind the pillar? Then I have a question of my own.
Yeah, nice.
If you're working in a B2C company, then it's really easy to see how people are using your app. You can generally get much quicker feedback from your users. If you're unfortunate enough to be in a B2B company, and especially with a management that doesn't deal with the users, they deal with the layer that do the purchasing. Have you got any advice on how you can get them to start caring about the users as opposed to the layer above the users?
Yeah, that's a tricky question, as you said, but I think for me the main thing is to always have your research, because the research is also data. So if the data shows one thing, then you can always present that. And it doesn't matter who that person is, they will understand the data. Yes, sometimes they care more about the money, okay, I get that. But if your users are happy, then the final product will be better, and then everyone, even like the upper people, will be happier. So I think that this is where the focus should be, on research, on people, on making people happy. And if people are happy, then we will have more stuff.
Okay, well, if there's no other questions, then I think that is an awesome place. Oh, we do.
No, I just raised my hand right now. So you mentioned research a lot. So what kind of research is the most valuable? If I have limited time and limited users, maybe not my final users, but just my family or friends who are testing.
Yeah.
So how to get that useful information from them?
Yeah, so the research is always a problem, time is always a problem, but even if you can do small research, try to do that and be open-minded, because again, you as a developer, you will already have an opinion about something, but it's not your opinion. Try to put yourself out there as a user and try to think only as a user and not as a developer, because maybe some stuff are easier for you, some stuff you don't want to do them, or you think they are useless, but maybe those few friends or whatever, your small team, maybe all together you can have a better result, a better research. And yeah, it's tricky, but yeah, always have your research and your data. If you want, we can discuss it more, because I see you are a bit thoughtful. I will be here. We can discuss it more if you want.
It's wonderful to watch people thinking that through and trying to work it out themselves. Okay, this time I'm going to take a really good look. Nobody hiding behind pillows, nobody... Nope, okay. In which case, I would like to say thank you very much again to Elef for that fantastic talk. Thank you so much for being here. We have a 15-minute break now until the next session, so see you later.
Thank you.